Hey there, YouTube. I'm going to do a review on a Chinese carburetor for an ATV. Now, I'm going to, I'll give you a little backstory. This is a 2000 or 2001 Yamaha Wolverine, all right? Got snowplow on it. I bought it because it came up for sale. It was super cheap because it didn't run and it hadn't ran in years. It had been sitting in the backyard, looked like hell, but it has snowplow on it, has a winch, doesn't work, but it didn't run. So I took it home. I figured I was going to clean the carburetor, put a battery in it, change the oil, see where I am. So I put a battery in it. I changed the oil. I took apart the carb and found that it was not the factory carb. There were two problems. First off was the air intake boot. Now this air intake boot goes against the engine. See if I can get a picture down here. It goes right there on the engine. All right, and it goes to the carburetor. Okay. Just like that. Okay. And it was ripped. You can see where it's still holding on and where it wasn't. So it was flexing, letting air in this little section, which would make it run like crap. So I'm like, okay, well, step one, I'll have to get a new air intake boot. So I pull it out, and then I'm like, okay, I'll clean the carb out. And I look, and this is a Chinese knockoff carburetor. Hence the Zoom Zoom, which you know is not factory. So I looked, the price of a real carburetor is extremely expensive. And I'm like, well, it had a Chinese carburetor before. And they said it ran good when they parked it. Let's give it a shot. Now, I have had good luck with Chinese carburetors on my son's Honda XR100. And I actually put one on his TTR 125 with a 150cc big bore kit in it. And it ran great. So I'm like, you know what? Let's give it a shot. All right. I know that these things are really designed for the small engines, but let's give it a shot. So I bought the carb. It came in, and I'll give you what I had to do first to make it work. First off, this boot was not 100% exactly right. It was 99%. But I had to take one of the bolt holes, and I had to take a drill bit, and I had to make it one size bigger because I just couldn't get it to thread right into the engine. Okay? The second thing I had to do is to get my throttle. So let me go back here. The throttle cable drops in, if you can see, up there. It drops it on top of the carb. I'll show you on the carb where. Right here. Let me get us something to point with. So the throttle goes in this little hole, throttle tube, and it was a little too small to fit in. So I had to take a drill bit, go one size bigger. It fit right in, looped in, bolted in. Actually looked great. Fired right up and idled perfectly. As soon as you gave it gas, it just fell on its face. It would pop, it would backfire, nothing. So I'm like, it's running too lean. So here's Carb Basics 101 on a vacuum operated slide carb. This is the jet that does your, inside there's a little jet, and that does the idle. This here is your main jet. That does your wide open throttle, and is also in part with the needle jet responsible for quarter throttle up to 3/4. This thing was perfect up to quarter throttle. So I knew there was something wrong. So the first thing I thought was that the needle needed to be shimmed. So there's this needle. This is the needle. The needle is in, you take off this top part. The needle goes through here, like so. Hold on. Anyway, there. This needle is in this. This goes through here, and as you accelerate, and their engine vacuum, this pulls up, and as it goes farther, you see it's tapered. That usually sits in this little hole here. Okay, that little hole right there. You can see that little hole. And as it slides up, it lets more fuel in. So the first thing I did is I shimmed it up. What I did is the needle on the other carb actually had little places where you can notch this down. So I notched it to the lowest one. Which brought the needle up a little bit. And it started and it ran considerably better. Not great, but much, much better. So then I'm like, okay, well, the jets must be crap. Who knows how they jetted this thing? I had a bunch of jets lying around. And this carb, I think, starts with a 140 stock. Who knows with a Chinese carburetor. But I had a 145, I had a 155, I had a 158 lying around. I also had a 150, but it didn't fit exactly right. It was for a flat side carb. So I removed this jet here. All you do is you put a screwdriver in it. Right here, you screw it out. It comes out. Okay? You put your new one in here. And I put a 145 in. And it got much better. I could now give it gas all the way, but it had no power. It was bogging. So what I found when I looked at it with the airbox off is when I would gun it, or hit the gas, that this slide, which I will try to put it back together, which, anyway, I'm not going to put it with the needle, but this slide is supposed to go up with engine vacuum and open up and allow air in, and in so, not only letting air through, but it creates a vacuum which lets more gas, more fuel come out of here, okay, around this needle, which is usually sitting in there. So a wide open throttle, it's all the way open. It's kind of like that. But as it's closed, it drops and drops and drops, and it basically seals itself off. So it'll slide up, 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 allowing more fuel to go in with more air. Wasn't moving at all. All right, that was my problem, along with a bunch of other things. So I thought this thing is just broken. But on top of this, when it sits in here, there is this spring, like so. This is my spring that came with this carb. And then there's a hat that goes on top. And as you see, as you push down, it creates pressure and actually gives it a little more resistance to flop up. So what I did is I chopped off the spring. Okay, I took about a thumb's worth off. I went down here, I went down about a thumb's worth, and I cut the spring, and then I put it all back together. All right, and all of a sudden I was hitting gas, and boom, it was moving. Everything was going great. Wasn't jetted exactly right with there, but it was working. Finally, that was opening. It was letting more fuel in. I was actually giving throttle, and it wasn't just dying. My setup for my bike, and this is obviously going to change based on everybody's bike. As far as I know, it just has an aftermarket exhaust. Wound up being a real 155 main jet. So right here was a 155 main jet. I left the idle jet stock. It seemed to work perfectly, along with the needle valve. The needle valve here. Where's one here? That would go through here, which is this, at its highest shim point. Okay, if you don't have shims, what you can do is you can add washers, tiny little washers underneath there. I would say about two washers and put it in. With all that and that cut off, it runs very, very good now. Starts right away, takes full acceleration. I will do after I plow with it, and I'll see how it does in the winter. I mean, it's only 30 degrees out today, and I'll give another review and see how the longevity of this carb is. But at this moment, it works. All right. Am I going to say this is the carb you want if you're going to be going 15 miles into the woods and having to rely on it? I don't know yet. I can say that my son had an XR100 and rode it for 2 years, and the carb was great. This thing out of the box was absolutely rubbish. But as of right now, I believe it's really pretty good. I'll still have to probably adjust the air screw a little bit and fiddle with it. I have it at 2.5 turns out, which is kind of normal. But at least it works. Ask any questions, leave any comments, and I'll put in some updates on how it keeps working as I snowplow through the season.